O king, my king, you must hear me as I report to you this, that in our times dwells a terrible prophet akin to the prophet Baal, who deceives many and hunts out true prophets. Shall they meet a similar end as when the great prophet Elijah dealt with them? I shall tell you today of the beast of the consensus and its parents. Number 1. The consensus is a social construct, and many use the word normal to describe it, but they do not mean the traditional sense of the word, though they hijack its pedagogue. 2. What normal should mean is that which naturally takes place in the course of maturation, such as flowers blossoming to sunlight. What they mean is that the public has added all of its greatest minds together to formulate a consensus opinion on a subject matter, which is not to be questioned. 3. The false priestess and prophetess Jezebel, in order to amplify her own personal opinion, married the king of the Israelites, Ahab, and whispered in his ear to convince him of her deceptions. The king then formulated the opinion of many of those around him, and so the pedagogue, the normal, was overthrown by a well-placed vial of poison. This creates a beast. 4. In the 1950s, a new beast was born into the world, one where men started to study physiology and post traits about the power of suggestion, and many companies began to employ physiologists as marketers so as to entrance the public into spending money on their devices and their services. 5. This corrupt practice of consumerism began transforming our societies with the advent of the radio and television, and later on the internet. Not only did funds and companies employ these methods, but also national defense agencies, part of the errors of Russia that Our Lady warned us about. 6. The natural result of consumerism is the offspring of many corporations, which themselves become an entity so powerful that they rival the influence of kingdoms, nations, and now they rival the influence of the greatest of nations. 7. Like Jezebel whispered into King Ahab's ears, these wealthy men, out of their greed, ambition, and overall megalomania, began to use their influence to collect more influence, to use their funds to collect more funds, funneling into themselves great wealth, and when having arrived to great wealth, began to use their whispers to influence and ensnare the public opinion with a multitude of veils which obstructs reality and constructs a false reality. Much like the allegory of Plato's cave, these entities become the men creating the shadows on the wall. 8. Some of these companies sell services and products which require a crisis of sorts in order to generate public interest. Therefore, they enjoy generating hysteria for the benefit of their own personal interests, which is, of course, pure sophistry. These hypocrites do not purchase the hysteria that they sell. 9. Because of how susceptible democracy is to men of little nobility, they can fund and rear corruptible political candidates in any and all serious political parties around the world. In fact, they can make it so that the public must only vote for up to 2 political parties, that they might have a much easier time in controlling both sides of the argument, the thesis and the antithesis, pretending themselves to be the synthesis. 10. This methodology is not new at all, but Jezebel is the popular biblical example of it, using unprincipled men in high executive positions and influence to transmit their own opinions onto the world, but under the veil of consensus. 11. When a standard and mundane person understands all of his reality from the feeds he receives on the internet and on the media and the television, especially from corporate or state-sponsored media, they come to an understanding of information and begin to generate conversation on subjects as though it were not merely political, personal opinion, but assumed data and information objective to all. They chew on the hysteria, hook, line, and sinker. 12. Thus Jezebel's spell begins to consume the public, and they do her dirty work, hunting the true prophets for her. 13. The Soviet communists also employed these methods of great subversion over the public dominion and opinion, and have caused great damage around the world, so much so that not only one beast was formed but many, yet they are all children of the evil one. 14. And so the allegory of Plato's cave is as follows. Men are shackled to a wall in a cave, and may only gain an understanding of what goes on outside the cave through the projection of shadows on the wall, without being permitted to venture outside of the cave and perceive that information about the world and the light for themselves. 15. The men casting the shadows we may also call the false prophets, or the spellcasters, the Jezebels and the Balaams. They prefer the situation not to change, and so they'll do whatever is necessary in order to secure their station and their high places. Men who fail to discern truth are intoxicated by their senses and their own thoughts, unable to detect the evils, as they are blackened themselves by vices of all sorts, especially in this age, degeneration and lust. 16. These men hate the Catholics, as the Catholics receive their information and their practice of virtue from the light of the great mystics, martyrs, and saints of the past, especially Our Lady, and understand that the world is ruled by the devil, who is in a perennial argument with God about humanity. 17. Many of the men casting the veils secretly worship the devil, as do false prophets, as they create what we call an unholy trinity. The rest are simply members of the beast. 18. The Holy Trinity is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, each with a special relationship to Our Lady, the nemesis of the devil. The unholy Trinity is the father of liars and murderers, the false prophet as his bride, and the beast they fornicate to create. 19. We live in a world with several beasts and several false prophets, but they all have one and the same king, the Prince of Darkness, and his demonic hordes. 20. When something is then agreed upon by the cult of the consensus, it is highly likely that the information they're getting is those images that they see projected onto their walls as they are trapped in their caves. 21. Several false prophets are vying for the ultimate power on this planet. They include war machines who want to incite perpetual war, population control advocates, globalists, the many synagogues of Satan, especially the greatest synagogue of Satan, and the godless whom worship the devil's excrements. 22. Fighting false prophets and false prophecy is not a matter of bravado, but a matter of contemplation and awaiting instruction from God when he speaks through a true prophet. 23. Therefore, until that prophet, that great messenger from God arrives, resist and repel, but do not attempt to slay the beast. It is the head of the snake which must be cut off, and the one who clamps her heel on the head of the great serpent is Our Lady. Therefore, express great devotion to her. Thank you for hearing me, my king.